What is up, YouTube? This is technically my first video back since my renaissance back to YouTube. If you haven't seen that video talking about my trading journey, I highly recommend it. This video is going to be done in one take, just going to go through the entire thing in one shot here, no cuts. I didn't know what to post once I kind of came back to YouTube, and I knew the next video that I did has to be a banger. So this one right here, I'm going to be covering the swing trade that I just took and just finished to be my biggest trade that I've ever taken in my entire career. It is in ticker symbol Dave, and I'm going to break it down to you guys in full here. So this ticker was brought to my attention because we've been going sideways for over a year now. If you zoom way out, this ticker used to be in the 400s and dropped all the way down with some reverse splits down to the equivalent of $4, which was basically a 99% drop. Then it kind of had this rejuvenation where now it's becoming viable again, right? And then this name needed a well-deserved break after the stock went from 4 to 300, right? So just now in a couple years, it went from 400 plus to 4 back to 300 or 290, right? So in this case here, it needed to go sideways and went sideways for a while. And it wasn't until somewhat recently that I went back on my radar. I always watched this name and had alerts set, but I've been wanting to see this break this 285 to 290 area. And then on this day here, we did break it. And why it was on my radar to begin with was because this earnings here, we had a gap down that got quickly reversed within a couple weeks back to the upside, and the daily flip back up. So I knew I was looking for my entry. So I saw this higher low form. I was almost going to be aggressive and buy this, but I decided not to. And I took entry on the 9th. I took the July 17th. So I gave myself about 6 or 7 weeks. And it was the July 17th, 350 calls for like, I forgot it was like 500 and change. Was in some profit here, was in some profit here. And then this day we got a gap up, and then we had a huge move down. If we go to the 5-minute chart here, just to show you guys what it looked like, we opened near 290, popped up to 300, went all the way down to 253s. So I ended up buying a couple more for cheaper, sold them off, basically at like a little bit of a gain, and then ended up as my position with like 30 contracts around 400 and change. So it was like a $12,000 to $13,000 position for a 6 to 7 week swing. And my main target here was this 345 to 356 area. And so what did we actually do if we broke it down? We initially broke out, retested all within the same bar, the weekly 8 EMA, which then also set up a weekly 1, 2, 3, impulse, pause, impulse. We broke the highs, made new 52-week highs, made new multi-year highs, and then we had continuation. Now, we then had a pretty harsh pullback where we dropped from around 319 down to 283. And this, for me, all this really was a very, very harsh break and retest. And I knew this area had to hold, and it did. The next day, we had a nice reversal, broke the highs, and then from here, I was pretty confident in the trade working. Had a pause bar on Monday of this week, and then yesterday I had a gap down because at this time, the NASDAQ, if you look here, the NASDAQ gapped down 3%. We had a huge gap down, and the NASDAQ's still pretty weak. So despite the NASDAQ being weak, Dave is still pushing. So we had a nice daily 8 EMA retest. I call it the daily 8 EMA launchpad. Nice retest, absolute explosion, continuation today. And I front ran it. I actually, whether it was luck or whether it was skill, whatever, but I actually closed pretty much everything at around this 340 to 341 area. I got fills at about 2,000 a pop, 2,100 a pop, and $2,200 a contract each. Now, I got a little bit of a dip in, and I actually rolled these now. So I have a little bit of the July 31st $400 calls because I do think we see continuation, and I'll show you why. So essentially what I did was I had a 12 to 13K position. I profited, my biggest profit ever, over $50,000 on this trade. And then I took out basically all the profit and reinvested my initial investment that I had, which was about 12K, into these $400 calls for July 17th. We'll see what happens. Obviously, the market's very weak. Maybe Dave cools off. Maybe it needs to consolidate. But the main thing here that I want to show you guys is that this is a multi-month, multi-year break. Similar type of ideas don't just go 5%, 10%, even sometimes 15%. They usually do get continuation. Look at a stock like ARM. ARM went sideways for years and then ended up over tripling. A stock like Intel. Intel, this purple line right here, is around 75, 76. It nearly doubled from there in just about a month and a half to 2 months, right? If you look at a stock like MU, this stock broke the dot-com bubble highs, kind of back tested it, and then, you know the story with MU. We can go on and show you these names that are breaking out of these multi-year bases, and that they don't like to just move a little bit. So if you look at Dave, for example, Dave on any given day can, intraday move 10, 15, 20 bucks. You look at the weekly even more. Now, just really what we're concerned about is the monthly. because my expiration is next month, basically end of the day, like the last day of the next month. So looking at Dave, this month we moved about $100. The previous, which was a smaller month, moved about $65, $70. And then, this one was probably our biggest month here. But even these smaller months still moved about 55, 60 bucks. So even if we just stay right here at 332, we can easily run to like 380, 390, probably even 400. And considering this is going to be a potential monthly 1, 2, 3 with continuation, I wouldn't also be surprised if we got expansion back up to maybe 416 to 440s. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. Obviously, we could spend more time consolidating. I would have to readjust, but now I'm basically playing with profits off my initial investment. So I did just want to kind of share some of these thoughts with you guys because, like I said, I wanted to really dive deep into this as to like why I took it, what I was looking for, my initial targets. And the big picture here is that we're looking for consolidation. We're looking for consolidation when it comes to the higher time frames because consolidation leads to expansion. And the key part here is that hold your winners, whether it's the same contract, whether you're rolling multiple times, different strikes, different dates, whatever it is, just keep your eyes on these winning leading stocks, right? The stocks with relative strength, the stocks that are breaking out, the stocks that are pulling back less and or rallying more when the market is weak and or when the market is strong, right? These little clues will help you. Obviously, this was a very difficult hold for me. There was many times where I was having 5-figure swings in a single day. This is a volatile ticker, to trade. However, it obviously paid off, and I'm super stoked, and I'm hoping we can report back to YouTube with more great trades. So that's pretty much all I got. If anybody has any questions, feel free, let me know down below in the comments. And as always, I trade live pretty much every single day in the Discord. I'll put that link in the description. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.